at Boom Live. We are a fact-checking organization. We also do media literacy and explainers and a bunch of other stuff. Please go on to boomlive.in if you're not familiar with us and learn more about us. So this evening, we're having a conversation with Josy Joseph. He's the author of an astonishing new book, The Silent Coup, A History of India's Deep State. Now, Josy is an investigative journalist and founder of Confluence Media, which does investigations. He has exposed some of India's biggest scandals, really. And he's been a national security editor at The Hindu, the newspaper, a special projects editor at Times of India. And he's had a lengthy career. He's also an author of another book, the award-winning A Feast of Vultures, The Hidden Business of Democracy in India. Josy, thanks so much for joining us this evening and agreeing to talk to us and also answer questions that will come your way.
Thank you, Venki, and it's a privilege to be here, and one has always been a fan of Boom, and good to be here.
Thank you so much. Before I ask you anything, Josy, just a little bit about the book. It's called A Silent Coup, and I have it here. And it's a history of India's non-military security forces and related agencies. I wondered what this design was at the book, but then I figured it out as I read it, and we'll come to it in a second. And so this is a story of how the bureaucracy and these security forces have hollowed out India's democracy from within, across the length and breadth of India, across several national governments as well, and usually always because politicians control them or seek to control them. So it actually brings me to my first question to you, Josy. And yeah, I should also point out that if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, and I'll take them as and when we do this conversation. So my first question, the subtitle of your previous book was The Hidden Business of Democracy in India. But having read both the books, it seems to me that the hidden business of democracy seems to be like a title that works well here as well. In the earlier book, it was actually the business of India. And in the current book, it's the security forces or the non-military security forces. Would you say that is the theme of really the work in the last 10 years or so of your career?
No, I mean, Venki, it is not that, journalism, you can't plan your career for 10 years. When you are in an industry where tomorrow's salary is not even certain. But journalism is printing something that someone else doesn't want you to read, right? Everything else is public relations. So I've been trying to do journalism all these years. And if it looks like digging up the hidden parts of Indian democracy, so be it. But I'm just a mediocre guy struggling to do some reasonably good journalism.
Wow, talk about understatement. Okay, what do you mean by non-military security forces? Explain what you've tried to do in this book, in other words.
See, if you look at South Asia, let's for a moment think of South Asia in 47. 3 countries came out of it, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And both Bangladesh and Pakistan, the military became the monster that consumed or damaged the democracy. And that has been the case in large parts of the country, in Latin America, banana republics, etc. I'm saying that, but in India, we are witnessing a very unique subversion of democracy, which is that the political masters have, from the Nehruvian days, Nehruvian days, have kept the military under strong checks and balance. And to be fair, military, by and large, has remained very apolitical and has remained probably one of India's most professional institutions. You have to credit them. There are drawbacks. And the politicians have, over the years, starting sometime maybe Indira Gandhi and emergency, starting with Indira Gandhi, they have used the non-military arm of the security establishment. When I say that, I mean the police, the CBI, Enforcement Directorate, Income Tax, the other DRI, various agencies. They've used all of them to intimidate their opponents, to silence the critical media, to create certain narratives, and in the process to subvert democracy. So it's a political executive of the day which uses these state arms to subvert democracy. These arms, they're very assured because of, if you look at the emergency period, except for very few, no policeman, no officer got punished or thrown out. They know that serving the masters of the day is the best way to career progression and peaceful night.
Okay, understood. Well, for those who are going to pick up the book, I mean, just a little bit about it. It's in two parts. The first part is based in Mumbai, or talks about what happened in Mumbai. And really, in this first part of the book, Josy, you trace the journey of an innocent man, Wahid, in the first and second decades of this century. And reading his story, it feels like he's really used, he and other people like him are used almost like to fill a quota, for suspects. Each time there's a terror attack, he's arrested, and then eventually he spends 9 years in jail, in prison, and his eventual release is because, and acquittal is because of a stroke of luck more than anything else. So the feeling I got, Josy, was that Wahid's story is really not an exception but a rule.
Yeah, Wahid is just my sutradhar for talking about the state of affairs in India's war on terror and India's the larger security establishment. And I am placing it in a certain context. If you look at it, after 9/11, India and most of the world goes into frenzy, as if for the first time you're waking up to terrorism because America is hit. We have been victims of terrorism for years. And the police forces go around the country trying to arrest, and an Indian government bans SIMI, the Student Islamic Movement of India. And the police overnight go around hunting for SIMI members. A police force which is mostly Hindu, very few Muslims, which already had serious biases, lack of reforms. And Wahid happened to be a conservative Muslim, but a teacher, doing well for himself, rescuing his family out of their poverty, who happened to have some misunderstanding with the local head of the masjid where he prays. And the local head of the masjid, who happened to be a police informant. And in fact, as if you recall, I discussed in detail about the informant industry, which is India's most recession-proof industry. Wahid is picked up. And then if you see, I'm using Wahid's experience to take the reader through the dark corners of India's security establishment. I mean, it's if you ask me, if it is a liberal democracy, many of our ATS police officers, Intelligence Bureau officers, and others should all be in jail because you have torture chambers in the heart of Mumbai city. And these torture chambers, these don't Guantanamo meant for Afghan terrorists or Pakistani terrorists. These are meant for your own citizens. And there they are stripped naked, they are beaten up, they are pumped with body, pain relieving oils. I mean, all kinds of third degree. And these torture chambers are not an exception. These are rules in our cities. Our cities can actually be remapped in Google using the torture chambers of police stations. And look why this taken in 2006 when the train bomb blast happens. He's again picked up as a terrorist behind it, and he's taken to narco test, where the narco test is being done by this media celebrated Dr. Narco called Dr. Malini. I mean, she uses third degree torture on the man, uses, plucks his ears and forces him to say things. And she has done about 1,000 narcotics. Her findings have been very crucial, not only on India's war on terror, right, but on many of the sensational crimes from Telgi scam to Sis Rabia case in Kerala to etc. And later what it turns out is that she herself is a fraud. And when she turns out to be a fraud, what does India do? India does nothing. Police does nothing. Her findings are still sacrosanct. So we have a problem, a serious crisis at the heart of Indian democracy. And Wahid just happened to be a Muslim who just happened to be accused as a terrorist. But I could have picked anybody else, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, a Sikh. It is nothing to do with religion, I'm telling. Yes, the bias against Muslim is much higher, but there are ordinary Hindu, Christian, Sikh victims of police, and that which I capture in the later chapters.
Yeah, you do that. In fact, I want to read out a line from the later half of the book. You say, and I quote, "In my assessment, instead of finding the real enemies of the nation, Indian agencies hunted down those who were accessible. Instead of searching for terrorists, it appears that they rounded up innocents. Instead of improving intelligence gathering and analysis, it seems they faked more intelligence. So that's the end of the quote. And for those of you who are interested in buying the book, we've put out a link to purchase it as well. Definitely well worth it. Josy, in this second part of the book, you look at the role these forces have played in Sri Lanka, Kashmir, the Northeast, in Punjab, the IC-814 crisis, in Gujarat. And one of the themes that strongly runs through this book is that this whole fake encounter killings, it's a shockingly common device, it feels like. Tell us a little bit about that. Was it only fake encounters that you were concerned with?
See, if you look at Indian police force, let's stick to police and intelligence. We'll come to enforcement directorate, CBI, etc. later. But and very incidentally, we are talking at a time when income tax is actually sitting in the office of two of our small media outfits. Anyway, the police, after the 1857 First War of Independence, the British Empire creates the Police Act of 1861, and that continues to be the framework used by most of the police forces. And in that, the police force is created as an agent of the empire, and the people are the enemies. And the police continues to date to that. In the last 2 to 3 decades, there have been, not just last 2 to 3 decades, since the early 50s, there have been several efforts at the government level, at the Supreme Court level, at the various levels to reform the police. The last one being, which is still underway, is a Prakash Singh case in Supreme Court, where former IPS officer, DGP of UP Police and BSF chief Prakash Singh, who had gone to Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has clearly drawn out what reforms are needed. It's very simple to do because many countries in the world have reformed their polices and made them accountable. It's very simple and easy step. But our political class, and not so much police, because police is only the servant of the political class. The political class has consistently ensured that the reforms are not carried out, so that our police stations remain this terrorizing, intimidating institutions for the public. And I haven't come across one Indian who's happy to walk into a police station, including myself, despite being a journalist, right? So this police, because it is not accountable only to the master of the day, the police has been across India staging encounters, killing people, criminals, innocents, whatever, for various narratives that they want to create. And I don't think there is any law which has empowered the police to kill people, right? Otherwise, we don't need judiciary and courts and procedures. Yeah. So if you look at the present-day Uttar Pradesh police, they are now on a new high of encounters. So has been polices in Andhra Pradesh. So has been polices in Tamil Nadu. We have seen torture, killings of father and son, etc. in recent time. So has been in Manipur. Hundreds of Manipuris have been encountered and killed. And now it turns out that most of them were fake encounters. Kashmir, we don't know what has been going on. I mean, we know what has been going on, but we don't know the size and scale of what has went on in Kashmir. Punjab, as you see in my book, I've spoken about the stories of disappearance in Punjab. I don't think there is a single state, and we should come to Gujarat because it's a very important part of the metamorphosis of the Indian non-military security establishment. And that is a model that is being adopted at the national level by the Narendra Modi government. It's a model that he has mastered there in Gujarat. And we should see all of it, not just against his political ideology, but also against the frenzied world of post 9/11. And if you notice, it's just a weeks after 9/11 that Modi becomes the chief minister of Gujarat, and we know what happened. Anyway, yeah. So police force across the country have been the arms of it. Now, enabling the police force are the intelligence arms, the Intelligence Bureau and other agencies. We are the only democracy where there is no credible external accountability on intelligence agencies. So if let's say look at the CIA or MI6 or any other agency, if they have a source and the source keeps feeding fake information, they got systems to audit and cancel out the sources. In India, I don't think there is any audit of these things happening. So across the country, there is this entire source-based industry which has come up. So what is happening is the sources and source-based information creates a fake narratives, which is used by the police to then stage encounters and killings, which feeds into a certain political narrative, mostly, but sometimes for winning their own medals. In fact, last week also we were reading about some presidential medal winner who's caught taking bribe in UP or
actually, we're getting some questions, but I'll slip in one more question before I come to 2 or 3 questions. And those of you who are unable to use the Q&A function for any reason, or if you're watching on another platform, you can use a chat box as well. So see if you can use the chat box. I'll see if there are any issues that we need to sort out. Josy, I want to ask you a question about how you wrote this book. Rather, it's heavily footnoted. I could have counted the number of notes, but still, how confident are you that everything you have written in this book can be documented?
I just want to go back to, you read out a paragraph where it seems has been repeated twice. I was forced to make those amendments by the legal read, because I did not use the word seems. I would want to be confident of what I'm saying, because I'm fundamentally a mathematics student, and I think, and as any reporter, we should. So I don't think I have written a line in this book which can't be substantiated. In fact, if Wahid's story surprises or anything, and whatever I said about Dr. Malini or Wahid or police member, everything is documented in the courts and court filings. I've used a lot of documents, but I have not exaggerated anything, nor have I made any tall claims which can't be substantiated.
Yeah. The reason I asked this question was because in previous years, or maybe previous decade and before that, it used to be taken for granted that a reporter will do their job and then whatever is printed can be trusted. But we are now living in this post-truth era where trust is at an all-time low, and there's obviously much more, the burden of proof is much higher on journalists. And it was really good to see these footnotes, and it's pretty clear when you read it that everything can be backed up. And I also know that in your previous book that you had documented a lot when it came to making these claims. And this is just a note to people who are watching. Other than Josy and people who do these in-depth investigations and they put in a lot of documentary evidence and footnotes, it's just not easy to believe anything you see in mainstream media. And that's one of the challenges of being a fact checker. Well, I'll just try and get in a few questions, but the other theme really that runs through this book is that political manipulation of these forces is by all parties and from all governments, whether it is the Congress-run government by Indira Gandhi in Punjab, or the Rajiv Gandhi government in Kashmir and Sri Lanka, or Atal Bihari Vajpayee, or Narendra Modi and Amit Shah in Gujarat. Now, and this is my observation, and I want to add a question that has just come in as well, that was asked by Devdas Purkil. He says the degradation of political discourse from the very top, disregard for facts, constant denigration of his predecessors, that is Modi ji's predecessors, and he speaks as if the Indian political history before him is a black hole of failure. Are these warning signs of looming fascism? Is it true? So I'm just going to modify that question, and I'm going to ask you, are all the governments the same, including the current one, or is there any way in which the current dispensation is different?
I think the previous governments were retail bullies. The present one is a very wholesale bully of a different scale.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
mean by that the present government has centralized power so much. Today, most things that most public figures say in public are lies, and they are not telling their own true feelings. They will tell you everything in private. And today, the Modi government is using these agencies to purely intimidate their opponents, free media, at a level at which at least I have not seen in my journalism career of almost 20, 25 years. Modi has no parallels. There is also another danger to this government, which is their disdain for scientific temperament and the resultant merit. And in many ways, my theory is that the overemphasis on merit that we have given in our society and in our lives has produced the losers' revolt. And in many ways, the hard work more important than Harvard argument is the one that the loser brings. And mind you, in a meritocratic society, the meritorious are minority and the losers are bigger. So we are also witnessing a loser's revolt. So I don't know where it's headed. I don't know fascism or whatever, but what I can definitely tell you is that what we are witnessing is the revolt of the loser, that fellow in your classroom who fell asleep in classroom, who couldn't score, match up with you, and who dropped out sometime in school and went around and would come up with these strange theories, and who still has that fantasies of himself being a poet and a writer and a mathematician and scientist. That's a loser I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'm not a great supporter of this great stress on merit, in the sense, because I feel I'm sympathetic of them, because it's not that everybody needs to be topper of the class like us. We could all live together happily, but unfortunately our modern life is so driven by merit that we end up producing and that's what the same thing about Donald Trump. Or if you look around Hungary, look around many parts of the world.
I mean, it's the bully argument. I've read it that, anywhere in the world, it's like the bully has stolen your lunch and he's standing over you. And then you say, hey, you stole my lunch. And the bully is saying, what lunch? The lunch is in his hand, but he's saying, I'm not stolen any lunch. You must be mad. Is there something wrong with you instead? I mean, it seems like that's the situation. Anyway, 2-3 questions have come in. Jatin Gandhi has asked a question. I'll come to your question in a moment, Jatin.
Jatin should answer that question. He knows better than us.
Yeah. But I'm going to go actually to Harshit Bharadwaj's question, which is, can't the police system be made independent?
Oh, yeah. It's very easy. Very simple. In fact, there is a very laid out, a very detailed judgment of Supreme Court and otherwise. Very simple, it's very simple. At the Thana level, constitute a committee of civilians from all kinds of political arguments and some prominent citizens. Let them look at the court, the case files, the success, failures of the local Thanadar, and the judgments or the trial court, whatever. At the district level, at the state level, give the DGP a fixed tenure and ensure that he is free of political this thing. And that is why when they wanted to appoint the new CBI chief, the present Chief Justice of India pointed out that there is a Supreme Court order saying that if a police officer has less than 6 months of service, he should not be made the CBI chief, because he should get at least a fixed tenure of 2 years. So what you do is you bring Asthana and make him 3 days before his retirement the Delhi Police Commissioner. So that's what I'm saying. Whatever I'm saying is not everything that I'm saying is substantiated by facts. And it's all very simple. See, accountability and morally driven democracy are all very easy to establish. And when it's violated, we can see. All of us can see what's happening. Many of us don't want to recognize it.
Yeah, and I should also add that, since I just finished reading the book today, I remember you've also, in the book, detailed the many recommendations, the many commissions that have come across and who've spoken for a reform of the police force and the model code and all of that. Okay, so there's a question from NK, and this is actually, I'm very interested in this question, because when I read this book, I say, okay, fine, India's democracy is hollowed out, all of that. But what is it like in other countries? So he or she, I apologize, could you compare the work of the deep state in India with their counterparts in the West and Israel? What about Africa? Could you throw some sunlight? So there's that argument, right? Other countries have done it, so why can't we do it, kind of thing. What do you say to that?
See, Israel is a special case. I don't think we should compare. It may be democracy by elections, etc. But it's a state which has got deep flaws, and it's a state which actively supports a lot of anti-democratic activities, including their intelligence agencies. And many could argue that it's for their survival, etc. But that's a completely different debate. But if you look at the liberal democracies like the US, UK, Canada, etc., in all those deep state do exist. It's not that they don't exist, but when the deep state activities are cross a certain criminal line, or when it's exposed, there are actions taken, there are corrective measures taken. A Watergate produces actions, not just the president goes away. The Foreign Corruption Prevention Act onwards, a lot of things emerges from the response to Watergate scandal. So deep state is a reality, because the state is a very complex administrative structure, and when people have powers and when they're empowered by the state, they will tend to misuse it. But But in a CIA or in an MI6 or any other of the agencies in developed countries, they all have high level of accountability towards the parliament, the Congress, etc. We don't have it. Our agencies are not accountable to parliament. Ultimately, we are a democracy. So I don't think we can compare. So the number of corrective measures that keep happening in those countries against the deep state, it's a recurring process. It keeps turning. And because of, and mind you, if you look at the deep state of America, other than outside of Hollywood movies and some rare exceptions, the deep state is always at action against some foreign elements. they're killing Afghans and Iraqis here. They're not killing their own people, right? They'll fly their armed UAVs to those places. Luckily, we don't have armed UAVs, etc. And when we have it, we will bomb our own people. That's what our deep state is doing.
That's the fear.
Yeah.
As you've established. Okay. I want to ask you Jatin's question as well, which is, how many journalists do you think are part of the source-based network creating a state-friendly narrative? Let's not, if not just journalists, he says it could be media professionals, but let's talk a little about that.
I would say significantly large number of them, because it happens at various levels. I think there are many journalists who are on the payrolls of these agencies, both for writing what they want and also for giving them information. There are media houses which are partially or fully funded or supported by these agencies, and which actively create certain narratives, including especially fake narratives of late. I think it's a phenomenon that is, and then there is, but not all journalists are on the payrolls. There are some idiots also.
Yeah.
So who without money also will do their service, because proximity to power is a very crazy thing. Power, even your proximity to power makes people go crazy. And so many journalists are willing to be willing tools of these agencies or police. And if you go to district level, in official towns and district headquarters, you will see there will be a group of journalists hanging around the collector and the superintendent of police, and they will write whatever they want. So it starts from that level to up to the central level. And sometimes these people can go irrational because they want to be on the good books of power. In 1999, just as Kargil conflict was starting, Army said that I'm being misused by an ISI module. And many journalists ran stories. Luckily, they didn't name me, but said that some articles are being planted by ISI to demoralize an army at war. Whereas I was reporting factual things, which Army later accepted. In 2005-6 onwards, Malegaon blast, etc. When some of us said that not some of us, we quoted our own sources saying that Hindutva terror needs to be looked into. There was aggressive coverage over the years by some of our best known bylines and people, creating all kinds of fake narratives. The result was that hundreds of our citizens got killed by the Hindutva terror elements and by the Indian Mujahideen, while our agencies and police are arresting innocent Muslims and framing them. I mean, it is, if you look at it, if you take a bird's eye view, it was like a dark comedy. Understood. That bumbling fools are, arresting Wahid kind of people, while the Muslim terrorists and the Hindu terrorists are bombing your cities. It's strange. And today we are in a situation where you have a government and an NIA and a home minister who are very actively trying to defend that the fact that there is a Hindutva terror or whatever. Terrorism has never had any religious bias. From Bible to Mahabharata to you can find all kinds of narratives about self-sacrifice, whatever we might call militancy, terrorism, insurgency. And if you see the world's most successful terrorist organization was LTT, it produced almost 400 suicide terrorists. It was a purely Hindu, Christian, socialist group. So I'm just saying that,
I was actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you that other question about religion and, suspects of terrorism. But back to the media, I must say, reading the book was kind of surreal for me because, Jatin spoke about journalists who get source-based information and they system is such that they're not verifying it, or it may be very, very difficult to verify it. But at the other end, we were all in the business when these big news stories broke. In fact, some of us experienced this stuff as well. Managing editor of Boom, Jensy, I'm sure you know this, Josy, but he was in one of the train compartments, just the one train compartment before, during the 2006 blasts in Mumbai. And so, that of course was an exception. I mean, that was a different case. But, when, I was in television news and we would get all this information, and in hindsight, obviously, it became clear that none of it was verified. There'll be some sensational claim, and there's so much pressure in TV news specifically to put out this unverified information.
Venki, I just wanted to come in here. By creating those false narratives, by us putting out those fake narratives, what we did, forget everything else, forget the Muslim, anti-Muslim, Islamophobia. We did not allow people like Jensy and other victims of India's terror attacks a closure. Whether it is in Godhra or in Bombay or in Delhi or in Jaipur, I don't think we have allowed them to know who actually attacked them. Closure is a very important part of healing.
Correct.
So, victims have been Hindus, right? Let's talk about religion. Let them have a closure. They still don't know who attacked the 2006 the trains. Jensy doesn't know. I have a fairly good sense of who did it, but they are not on trial for it.
Yeah.
People who have been convicted are not the terrorists behind 2006 train blast. That's very clear, including Wahid who got acquitted. It is a bizarre narrative they create.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump to a few more questions. There's a very basic question that Anchita asked, which I think is an excellent question. Why do you think police agencies would engage in fake encounters instead of actually looking for the culprits?
It's a very easy thing to do, no? Scientific investigation is a very, very challenging, difficult task. It took me 10 years to write a small book and another, 15, 20 years to bring together this book, right? So imagine investigating a complex crime or a terrorist attack. It's a very challenging thing. Why do we all sit and watch all these crime shows? Because it's so fascinating. It's scientific. It's very challenging. So one is that our police forces and agencies are not equipped enough to do. Second, they don't have enough incentives to do scientific investigation. Third, they don't have accountability. They know that whatever they do will get through. So all these factors together, it's the Indian security establishment is largely incentivized to create fake narratives, fake stories to kill the wrong people, or even the right people. And to kill. That's where the incentives lie.
Yeah. Well, that was a crisp answer, and I want to be respectful of your time, Josy. So I'll take 2-3 other questions before we close this out. So let me just, Ankita Deshkar, I think we kind of referred to this, Ankita, but she asks, how is the Silent Coup different as compared to a feast of vultures, since both the books dwell over democracy?
Ankita, if you read, you'll make out, but very simply, I looked at in my first book, I looked at the rise of my first book is based on a very simple theory that everything in this country is on sale, whether it's a birth certificate or a government. If you get to the right intermediary and pay the right bribe, you can buy both, any of them. In my second book, I am saying that Indian democracy is being subverted, has been subverted by the non-security establishment, which is serving the political masses of the day. Both are two different lenses of looking at what's going wrong with the world's largest democracy, the most complex human experiment ever to have been conducted since Homo sapiens emerged out of Africa. And we need to look at this experiment through 1,000 more lenses so that every mistake is documented, so that we can all hope to create a liberal, mature democracy where people of so much diversity can live together peacefully under a written constitution.
Right. Okay. That's a thought-provoking answer. We're going to close questions now. So I can see Idris has asked a question. NK, you asked a question already, so I'll come to you last if there is time. Okay, so Idris asks, Anandwala, he asks, are there any measures made to improve the forensic analysis at the police level when a terror attack happens? Because police are the first responders to such attacks.
I think we got forensic labs, etc. But the lack of accountability means none of these scientific improvements have any impact. For example, I'll tell you one state, because I'm still looking into it. There is a state in India where one particular lab has been providing evidence, genetic DNA evidence for convicting people in a certain kind of crime, under a certain stringent law. Now, it's a forensic lab, but the fact is that they are playing, they're on sale. That lab is on sale to give you or give the police or give the politician, whatever, to settle scores with people. So I don't think scientific improvement is the way forward. And I haven't paid much attention. I'm not a scientist at all. But I know that our greatest, most famous narco test expert was a fraud.
I mean, I knew the story, but reading the one in detail was quite shocking. Okay, Jency asks a question. One common claim by the present government has been that there have been no terror attacks in major cities, unlike during the UPA. Do you think the larger citizens bother about issues like the deep state as long as they're kept safe? But can you say why this should matter to them? He asks.
Jency, this deep state is not against Muslims. It's not against Sikhs. It is against every citizen of this country. This deep state will come for you. If you are doing a business, you may be an upper caste Hindu, you may be a BJP supporter, you may be whatever, you're close to police officers. But if you are doing business and your business is competing with a business that is a favorite of the regime, they'll come for you. The deep state has been used in the recent years to subvert the marketplace. And I don't have evidence, so I'm not taking the name, but one of the largest infrastructure projects of recent times has seen ownership change, take over by a regime-friendly business house, obviously because of intimidations that family faced. And it's a well-known thing. I'm not taking any state secret. It's all well-known. So terrorism is one small part of the problem that the unaccounted deep state creates. Terrorism is a very small part. Only, the number of women killed in this country for dowry is several times more than terror victims. So terrorism is a very small part of the problem. The deep state is a threat to you and me and everyone in this country. Deep state of the kind that we have is a threat to meritocracy. They will subvert your children's admission chances. They will subvert your children's future prospects of a good job. They are a threat to everything. So no, I mean, terrorism is not the way to look at it.
Okay. He asks again, security agents are not accountable to the parliament. They're not accountable to courts. They have the liberty to spin narratives, he asks, which may or may not have any bearing on reality. So in this loop, countless lives have been destroyed. Is there no accountability? If there is no accountability, where is the justice? He asks. How does one demand for justice?
Jency, my book also came out of the sense of helplessness. Even today, when I get some free time, I also think about what if income tax walks into my house tomorrow morning, some offices, what are the documents I should collect and keep, I don't know. Today, you just heard that the income tax is carrying out raid at 2 news websites, news organizations. Now, tell me how many income tax raids have been done on Adani or the other corporate houses where you find 3 or 4 particular Mauritius funds which have played a role in subverting and bringing down or who have had a role in the rise and collapse of some of the biggest bank loan defaulters of the recent years. What happened to the over-invoicing of Adani and other groups that we saw where there is a documented case for them to have 15,000 crore rupees? Isn't our income tax stretched? Why are they going and sitting in NewsClick or News Laundry office where the annual turnover maybe 3 or total expense would not be more than 4-5 crore rupees? These chaps are in their fantasy world. They are serving their petty, subservient, petty and criminal-minded political masters. And they know they can get away with it because we are almost a banana republic.
By the way, that question was by Ritika Jain, our colleague who handles legal matters and who reports on the courts.
Ritika, okay. I'm not saying this. Huh? People like Justice Madan Lokur have documented the fact that judiciary is being used to abduct. That intelligence agencies are...
Yes, sir, I get it from there only. Hence my question.
Yeah. So the judiciary is being intimidated, is being subverted.
Right. Okay. I want to wind down, just looking to see if there are any other questions. While I'm looking for questions, Josy, I want you to tell us the story behind this cover. I mean, what is this design in front of it? What is the meaning of it?
I think I need to talk to the designer again. But I think it is. See, our original designs were much more aggressive. Like there were this. AK-47 was on the cover. We had a cover where we had some grenades going up and all that. So I said, look, this is too intimidatory. I made it as actually. We all agreed that we need to be a little more sober because what is inside was very slightly aggressive. So we decided, but I think it to me, it gives a surreal sense of the fact that there is a shadow of the deep state over all of us, everything that we do. We don't know whether the deep state is listening into you right now because this is a democracy where state deploys Pegasus, weapon quality cyber systems against its own citizens. We don't know whether they're preparing the charge sheet for you and me. We are in a Kafkaesque situation. So I think it is very symbolic and it appeals to my Mallu sensibility. So
my takeaway was exactly, it looks like a wire mesh.
Wire mesh. Yeah.
It's another way of saying we're behind bars.
Yes.
So that was that. Samuruddin Naufar says, and I'm trying to understand the question, says assassination, murder that is made by politicians, but people can't find the truth. So, I mean, the way I would interpret that question is, not only is there a war against creating a narrative, but there's also a war against facts and the war against truth.
I told you, see, this entire, people talk about post-truth, no? It is not post-truth. It is, this is my theory. People may not agree with it and it might sound very classist. The revolt of the loser is finally here. And it's going to be here for a long time to come. We will find it very difficult to capture back because you know what? Something historically has happened which aids this entire revolt of the loser, which is that through history, printing, especially the printing process, has been the elite, in the control of the elite, the educated elite. It has been taken out by the social medias and internet and given to the masses. And like every technology, in the first wave, it is always misused. So the loser is having a great fun. So on Twitter, some of our very worthy people I see sometimes when I look at it, they are sitting and answering some idiot, some anonymous idiot who's making who's abusing him, right? So this revolt won't go away as long as we have got unaccounted social media, as long as we have these publishing platforms which are operated in this way. So we are in for a long haul. It has nothing to do with a certain ideology. It is something bigger than that.
Got it. So there are still a few questions. Josy, do you have another 5-7 minutes?
Yeah. I'm good. I don't have anything else to do in life.
Okay. So Abnil J asks, in your research, what have you understood about the exploitation of technology by the deep state to subvert democracy?
Oh, big time. No, see, there are two things happening. One is the massive deployment of technology by the state to create narratives like the Bhima Koregaon case, etc., etc. Because the state or the ruler needs enemies, that is one of the fundamental necessities of autocratic minds. One is that. Second is that technology is being used to subvert democracy at various levels, from capturing the mainstream media, which again is a large technological platforms, uh, to social media. There is technology being used and misused to subvert democracy. But along with that, something more frightening is happening, creeping in, which is that the machine learning and artificial intelligence tools that are being used for governance, for policing, etc., are also being are by default or by mistake or deliberately is slowly being embedded with deep biases.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take 3 questions. That's it. That's the end of it. Three quick questions. Dr. Neha Vaidya asks, how to win WhatsApp? It is fueling false narratives and bails out authority. So what would you say?
It's not just WhatsApp. It is all these new generation platforms. As I said, these are the first generation of platforms that have democratized publishing, and they will be used like all technologies through history, whether it's a birth of internet or the undersea cables. All of them have always, the first generation technologies have always been used by the empires, by the rulers against the people, and this will happen for some time, because I think our generation is in a crass pursuit of profit. So we would buy WhatsApp for $19 billion, but would not invent enough medicines to fight COVID. So there is no easy answer.
Okay. Milan Manjunath Senai on YouTube is asking, what is the way out? This system serves the politicians and general public does not care. It seems like the entire system is just built to extort and launder money and intimidate people, nothing else.
I mean, it looks like that, and I agree with you, but it is not for us to give up. We all have to take our little pushbacks. We have to push back. We have to talk. We have to make loud noises, civilized loud noises in the public square.
Okay.
There is no other way out.
Okay. The questions aren't stopping, but I am going to restrict now, and I'm going to combine 2 questions. NK says, since the birth of our nation, have there been any watershed moments that produced irreversible change in encouraging the deep state to turn on its own? And that I'm going to combine with Sumit Usha's question, which is, has the police become an instrument at the hand of governments recently, or has it been like this in earlier governments too?
Oh, it has always been like this. So, when the Indian state formed, because it was such a complex state formation, and I don't think we have told our children or taught ourselves how close we were to balkanization. In fact, that's something which fascinates me. I'm trying to understand these days. We were very close to balkanization than we have appreciated. So it was an incomplete state that came up. From day one, we had the Naga insurgency, and later on in Kashmir, etc., etc. So the India's fight with the republics of discontent with the insurgents have been given up by the political class very early, and we gave it up to the police and the intelligence and the military. And that's where the problems began. So the irreversible process is when the political leadership of the country gave up the activity of creating a union and gave that job to the police and the military and the intelligence. So military was deployed in Nagaland in the 50s, till date there's there. It was deployed in Kashmir internally, late 80s, they're still there. Nobody will go away. If you get power and medals and glory, who will go away? So is the intelligence agencies. So is the police.
Yeah. Anil Chawla, can we say that these deep state characteristics are a symptom of a deeper malaise?
Of course. I mean, I think it is because we abandoned the process of democratization somewhere, and very soon after independence. And I think it is a symptom of India giving up on its process of democratization, because liberal democratic states take decades and centuries to emerge. It's an ongoing process. I think at somewhere we seems to have given up. There have been occasional bumps in our process. Like the India Against Corruption movement was actually a good bump when we thought something good is moving forward. The first UPA government, when Manmohan Singh passed RTI and other acts, that was a step forward. But there is, otherwise we have given up. So I think it's a malice of the larger crisis. And the larger state reform and organized efforts at democratization is the only way for us to lessen the control of the deep state and its misuse.
Has democracy ever succeeded? Harshit?
Of course. Of course. Go to Scandinavian countries. Go to. I mean, democracy has been a great success. I think there's enough and more examples of democracy being a great success.
Yeah. Last question, Rahul Chaudhary. I'm going to combine again 2 questions. Rahul Chaudhary says, I admire your courage. How can one be even half as courageous as you? And Anshita says, she says it's a personal question. How does it feel after an investigation? Are you afraid? If not, how do you feel? If you remember, Josy, I asked you this question once before for your previous book.
And what did I tell you?
Here. So tell us.
I'm not some Marvel comic hero, yaar. I'm a middle class guy. I got my own fears. I do have my worries, but I think as someone who has benefited from the state subsidies as a child, as someone who has grown up and benefit and has benefited from its good education systems and the meritorious society, I think I owe it to my and as a father of a girl who is now going into college, I owe it to them and to my past to write and to write about the present. I could have written novels or become a columnist somewhere, but I realized that I'm able to explain complexity and people seem to like it. So I have to write about the present. I think. And that present is so complex, and to me it's so fascinating. When I sit down to write, I can't think of anything other than my words and my sentence and whether it is reading well, and if the story is coming up well, how is it all tying together, nothing else. But after I write, I'm shit scared. So I obviously I'm worried. But the good thing is that if income tax or ED or somebody were to come raiding, I don't have much to they won't have much to dig out because I'm not a rich guy. So there is, yeah. So I remember somebody filed a case on me for 1,000 crores. I was laughing. So obviously because I don't have the money I don't have 1,000 crores to pay him. So why should I be worried, right?
Yeah. Dr. Vaidya says, salute you for the courage. And, it's worth mentioning also, I've asked other investigative journalists, and one person said to me, the name escapes me, unfortunately, that, they've become so used to being harassed by the government that they've made friends with some people in the legal system, in the courts. So they've started learning to kind of deal with it because for years and years and years, they've been targeted. And so they've now figured out a way to cope with it. I mean, it's a simple way of putting it.
But Venki, I should tell you something. I mean, let's be honest, and we should be. The government has a lot of fascinating, great human beings, outstanding people. How do you think I write this book or I wrote the 2 books? All of it is based on largely government files, right?
Yeah.
There are great, honest people out there, and those people give us the confidence and courage to write. Our greatest heroes are within the government, and they are unrecognized. They're silent, and it should always be silent warriors who will empower us. People like people like me or journalists, we are all we are all shallow people who are having fun at the expense of those real heroes. So yeah, I mean, I think there are people taking bigger risk, whether it's at the border or within the government.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's hope the silent heroes also continue to empower and work despite or because of whatever challenges they have. And it's a reminder for people to please pick up The Silent Coup. It's one of those books you have to keep in your library. You can read it as per your own schedule, but definitely buy it and keep it. And thank you so much, Josy.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. And I must say that, we'll continue to bring these conversations here at Boom. Fact check, boomlive.in is our website. We've started a membership program. And what we mean by membership is we want to know more and want to be in deeper contact with our readers. And we learn a lot from our readers. So sometimes our readers give us their energy. Sometimes you give us your time. Sometimes you give us your money. Whatever you can give us, we will take happily. So on that note, please become a member of Boom and also continue to support independent journalism. And definitely, again, buy Josy's book. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.